The Idiot by Dostoyevsky has been circling my mind like an anxious dog recently. I can't get it out of my head, so instead, I will put it out here. Namely, one key question that lends itself to any reader of this novel. In a society that seems to benefit only the bad people, what purpose does it serve to remain good? If I attempt to go into too much detail about the specifications of this book, I fear I will talk myself into a rut. So I will simply state the premise instead for the sake of context. The Idiot is about a saintly, moral man being perceived as an idiot for his goodness by the society he exists within, and ultimately the collision that ensues when such purity attempts to live among moral decay. The question put forward is very simple. Does being moral make one an idiot? It is undeniable capitalism benefits the sociopaths, the ones who can move without a guilty conscience in sight. It rewards those who can be selfish without mental consequence, those who believe it is a dog-eat-dog world. Biologically, this makes sense. We are, after all, hot-wired for survival. Darwinism insinuates that we must adapt to survival of the fittest, if we are to ensure our genetic line continues on by taking whatever actions necessary. Being selfish is inherently a biological blessing. Personal morality outside of the mandatory societal morality, then, is nothing but a hindrance in the grand scheme of things. Personal moral codes only limit you from adapting to your environment, from embodying the necessary ruthlessness required to survive in this cutthroat society. From stockbrokers and morally ambiguous lawyers to infidels and test cheaters, there is a whole range of benefits that come from preying on the vulnerability of others. More fool those who are naive enough to believe that everyone around them is as trustworthy as themselves, those who subvert expected moral behaviors and have no problem taking advantage of others. They have merely adapted to this world better than those who trust. They have learned the harsh truths of the society and are using their hard-earned knowledge to finally get something back. Or at least this is what some are led to believe. The phrase, "how do you sleep at night," is often laughed at by villains in films, followed up with some snarky remark about closing their eyes. The weight behind the question is brushed past, but for a second, I implore you to genuinely think about how these people sleep at night. Now, when I do something wrong, it bothers me. It keeps me up. I struggle with immense guilt consistently, often about things that I really shouldn't feel bad for at all. The only way I can sleep at night is by consolidating my actions with my character and reminding myself that I haven't intentionally done anything wrong because I know my moral code to be strong. If I have done something bad, then I will redeem myself with consequential actions. This is how I rest easy. To sleep peacefully at night, whilst actively being a terrible person, means you have come to accept yourself as such. It means you have looked at your character much like Dorian Gray looked at that decaying portrait of his soul, and decided that you are okay with being so hideous. You have accepted that this should be your norm, that you are fine with thinking from such a negative, pessimistic perspective. You are okay with living in a dark, gloomy world where you are merely surviving because this is the world you have come to know as normal. To live from a perspective where you are constantly trying to ensure your survival at all costs, where everyone around you is either equally evil or just blissfully naive, means you believe this is all life to be. A game of survival where your only hope is to be selfish or suffer. I have suffered many things in my life. I have been naive at many turns, have bared my soul to many people who quite frankly did not deserve to see it. One particular individual said something to me once that stuck out in this line of thought. They listed all the people and situations they knew who had hurt me and taken advantage of me, then sneered that it was my own fault for trusting them. The blame is not on them for doing the actions, but rather on myself for letting them. It is true that, more than once, I have put myself in foolish positions that have hurt me beyond comprehension. I accept full responsibility for the positions I put myself in. However, I refuse to accept accountability for another person's actions. Now, do I need to learn to perhaps be a little bit more cautious, to judge people's characters a little bit better? Perhaps. But the only way to become better at something is to learn through experience. Now, that will come with time. And no matter how good you become at something, at understanding a person's character, you will never be able to predict someone's actions. We are humans, not fortune tellers. An intrinsic part of human nature is unpredictability. To assume that we can subvert that to predict everyone's behavior before they themselves have decided who they are going to be, well, that's ludicrous and ignorant. So I cannot predict when someone is going to treat me badly. I may notice certain personality traits that lend themselves to bad behavior, but even the darkest minds can still surprise you. Still, am I the fool for not immediately assuming someone is bad? Now I can justify my position all I want, but it really comes down to a simple answer. I would rather live in a world where I believe everyone to be good until they prove me otherwise than assume that they are bad from the beginning. I accept responsibility for the results of this mentality, but life is simply too short to live from a place of fear. And this is where the whole eat or be eaten mentality comes from: fear. Fear of being taken advantage of. So much so that they would rather become the thing they are most afraid of than risk being the victim. I see no shame in being the victim. I see no shame in allowing myself to be hurt because it is only through experience that we grow. I believe it to be a far more intelligent, far braver position to put oneself at such risk rather than to live in terror. Perhaps I am the idiot, but that is a role I am okay with assuming, because I would rather be surrounded by people who think me stupid for living in a happy world than live in such a world of darkness. There is, of course, a degree of balance to be demanded here to not move around completely blind to the dangers of society. But maintaining above all your commitment to being the idiot in the eyes of all that evil means you are committed to living your life rather than surviving it. That, I think, is a good position to be in. That's all.